Good afternoon, good evening to the friends joining us today on our LinkedIn Live show here from the EOV organization. And I am Rajiv Paul, EVP for EOV Sales and Delivery based here in Washington, D.C., US. And with us, we have guest Colleen, who is joining us from New York, Abhi joining in from Pune, and Kishore joining in from Pune. And friends, today we are talking about the topic how to deliver excellent product experience before launch. And as you would all know that how important and critical a product experience, user experience of the product that you're going to see is for the successful launch of that product. And I want to go back uh, 30, 40 years back when internet was just evolving, when internet used to be all about information, passive information being consumed by the users. And over the time, as it has evolved, we have seen the whole media becoming more of the active interaction of the users. When we start seeing the internets of the world, internets of devices, we start looking at Facebook, we start looking at Snapchat, we start looking at different things happening like augmented reality, virtual reality. Everything comes down and bogs down to the user experience. And the user experience has evolved over the years from just being the pictures and the design to small things like the thumb, the like thumb, which goes a lot to just put that thumb to express what are you feeling about the information that was just served to you. The going from the realities of Web 3.0 to the metaverse world that is happening, the virtual realities that are happening, the people will be moving the design from the 2Ds, which are being served on your laptops and phone, to the 3Ds, the gaming, etc. Everything involves user experience and designs. And this is something that organizations have been grappling to grow with it slowly and steadily till the point when they're put onto a spot where like the experience from the user comes in and says, ah, your site is XYZ, is lacking here, or strengths are here. And it's always beneficial when you're putting those product engineering together, they're able to test that out before the product is really launched. So our topic today is very relevant with today's times. And I'm going to start our discussion today with Colleen. Hi, Colleen. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Welcome to our LinkedIn show, and thank you so much for joining from New York. And we're
Sure.
taking your valuable time during your lunch hour, but hope we'll have some really good quality discussion here and benefit the people who are joining us on our show. So, first question that I want to ask you, Colleen, is regarding product engineering. We are seeing a lot of joint ventures happening when people across the organizations are building components and those components are coming together. What have you seen from your experience and your industry about the IP related and how this joint venture are happening when the product engineering is going on?
Well, sure. Happy to be here at EOV's webinar. Um, as a partner at Muse Platforms, we make have made a lot of strides in the trending area of joint IP and joint venture product development. In fact, next week we'll be releasing our own product called Hercules, which is going to assist the media and broadcast sector manage their CTV, Roku channel um, videos and management of mobile to channel development. And as part of actually developing it, um, we wanted to use the latest technologies, the emerging technologies, and those come with very specific skill sets. Um, and, part of it is a need to be able to pivot with product to the demand that your new customers are actually asking for. What we did is we partnered with a company called Floweyes in the Netherlands. They're out of Amsterdam. And as a result of that, we both decided to invest some of our own resources together to bring this vision of helping organizations on a very specific use case of managing mobile to TV workflows, where you want to do your TikTok for TV moment, you want to take a news story and you want to actually make it live much more efficiently, and you want to do that with a very specific group of people, potentially minimizing it from having a lot of production in the background and so forth, and managing different file cloud server buckets, all the way through to ensuring Roku has the updated feed, etc. We've collapsed this through the possibilities of being able to work with their low code platform on top of the cloud of our choice, which for us is AWS. And what this has all meant is in a free exchange of resources across the partnership, uh, inviting folks to adopt our product is the next step, where they're not going to just be adopting Muse IP, but they'll be adopting Floweyes IP too, which I think is a really sort of new kind of trend in product development. A lot of product development SaaS platforms have been all about encapsulating the IP for that particular company, but we're saying, hey, well, we have a pre-patent technology here that we're in the making of doing. And I'm sure this is done quite a bit on the white label side of things, where a component might come in, might be using chips or whatnot in an IoT device or whatnot that's from a certain company, putting in the ingredients, and whammo, you're calling it your thing. Here we're saying, no, we're actually a couple of companies coming together. And then sure enough, wouldn't it be that another partner shows up at the scene, the metaverse partner Roomful, and we've been working on some other stuff with them, and then we just kind of hatched this idea that yeah, it was so the future, like we thought would definitely be wanting to put TV into the metaverse, but shoot, we have this great relationship with companies. Why don't we combine forces again? We're not talking about staffing a lot of people. We're talking about leveraging our either our bench resources as the system integrators, or we're talking about leveraging some strategies that we have, or processes we have native to our companies. We're combining sort of the best of both worlds, by doing this joint venture, joint IP, now extending to Roomful, which will be coming out in the next couple of weeks, which is our first attempt at creating a Muse metaverse, a Museverse, we call it, where it's going to focus on entertainment. And, use cases are sort of dropping from the sky, because every time we turn around, we're asked about it in a new way, which is the wonderful thing about emerging technologies. So that kind of gives you a little sense of my experience and Muse's experience in the space. But it's kind of catchy. It's like, I think as we start to get real customer feedback, wouldn't be surprised if another partner shows up in this sort of new model, which we call collaborative.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the whole concept about metaverse, right, Colleen? The metaverse is just really coming up with that collaborative model where
yes,
your strength, your IP, your technology, your patents, etc., you're going out to the metaverse and looking at the partners who collaborate with you to grow and build it
yes,
into another product as such, right?
yeah, and it's
And
taking on a life of its own amongst us.
yeah, exactly.
It's actually impacting the way that we're developing our product and our vision. What they have at their fingertips, and vice versa. It's actually already increased capability over there at Floweyes. This is something that they can offer to their other customers now.
Right.
This is also something where we're sort of like pushing the envelope a little bit. So they've had to develop some integrations with AWS that they weren't there
Right.
before. All that
And that's
kind
what
of pushing the needle forward is what's happening. And we didn't have to build up a whole new specific skill set team to make it happen.
Right. And that's what I was like when I was earlier talking about the 30, 40 years back, kind of the passive, siloed environment of internet to now being into the collaborative environment of the technology and how we have really transformed that to this new agent generation. And that has continued to move us to the new trends on the user experience as such, the product
Yes.
engineering as such. So I'm going to lead my next question to Abhi. So, Abhi, like as we set up our today's topic as product experience before launch, right? And I would like to hear from you. What were your thoughts? What when you say product experience before launch, and the benefits of product experience before launch?
Great. Thanks, Rajiv. Thanks for hosting this webinar. It's indeed a very interesting question, what it really means. So, if we really go back to the time of the 2000, when the Y2K or the dot-com bubble came out, you know, earlier the approach to a solution was an absolutely different, right? So earlier it used to be, okay, there's a problem statement, and we used to go and we just get to the problem statement, and post understanding the statement, we used to come up with a solution, right? Now in today's time, the entire situation has changed. Rather, the entire with the emerging technologies, the entire concept of solutioning has got into a disruption. Now, what the topic really means, before we go to a particular business and we understand what problem do they have, we basically do a reverse engineering here, which means the time I reach or we reach to a particular company, we have done certain level of metrics driven analysis. We have done certain level of understanding in terms of the problem statement and what could be the ideal level of addressing those. Now, if you typically see, the most common challenge is user acceptance, right? So there are n number of products that are being developed today. Now, what's the success factor for any product? What do you think, Colin?
I
It's
think that
only acceptance.
there's usually something that we can boil down to one KPI, and it's certainly different
Correct.
um,
Correct.
from product to product. It might be
It should
customer
be usable.
satisfaction.
Exactly. There you guys go. So it
Mhm.
has to be an acceptance. Now, how we define before the product is launched, we need to clearly define this level of acceptance. So this goes through a process. This is a journey, right? Wherein we understand the demography of the user. We break the demography into certain level of actionable metrics based on the industrial input and the potential problem, and then we create a kind of a skeleton, how to pitch and how particular through this skeleton a particular associated problem will be resolved. This is what all we want to capture today in this LinkedIn live.
And
Does
Fabulous.
that answer that?
Yeah.
that's a very important thing, Abhi, because number of times the client may come to you knowing that you're a product engineering company and say, I already have a website or I already have a presence out there through the
99% time.
right.
99%
But
time. That's what I have seen.
I am not getting the result I was expecting, right? I'm not there
Correct.
out there on the searches. No one is coming to my site. I don't even know how many people are coming and sticking on here. But I am not getting the same success that I was expecting by just going on the internet presence. And I think EOV and your organization helps them do that reverse engineer to understand the problem statement, look at the KPIs, and figure out what may be the reasons where those KPIs are lacking as such.
Very interesting point, Rajiv,
Yes.
what you have pointed out. And so, out of my 15 years of experience, I have done over 40,000 meetings globally, right? And trust me, out of those 40,000 meetings, 99% people said, hey, you know what? We tried doing this and that. And trust me, the world of software solutioning has transformed, right? So it is no more a concept of a website. It is more from, rather, it has evolved from website to web apps, now to mobile apps, which would eventually be driven or replaced by something called wearable devices, right? Earlier, a particular, people used to interact with your websites. Now people do not interact with your website. It's your data interacts with another set of data, right? Eventually this will be replaced by devices. One device will interact with another device. It so happened every people say, hey, you know what, we want to achieve this. Correct, we definitely want to achieve this, but how can we achieve? It has to be a process, right? So what we as a company do, and this is our fundamental principle: please, we do not execute and we do not accept any project until and unless each and every individual stakeholders are aligned to the product development vision. How do we align our self product development vision? That's an important question. We aligned ourselves from the design thinking point. We elaborate, we first get onto the problem statement. We see from a different world. We have to put ourselves on a different shoe to arrive at a particular instance. That's where the entire situation, and if we follow this particular flow, the success of your development is bound to happen, because you involve not only your internal people, you see your solution from a third party window as well, and which is extremely important.
Right. So I'm going to ask a question to Colin before I go to Kishore. And Colin, as per your experience as you're working with these products, especially in the metaverse environment too, the user experience, the design, etc., becomes extremely critical. But what we have also seen that organizations have not really matured as well or understood the value of user experience and user designs, because they take that as many a times, not majority time, many a times they take it as the low level priority. And I would like to understand from you, Colleen, what has been your experience and your thoughts on the focus of user experience and designs.
I think it's a enablement, learning, sort of activity for any independent software vendor, anyone that's trying to attempt product development internally. You sort of need to be your own internal advocate, and then represent the user, because the business has its priorities and its objectives, and it sometimes isn't in concert or aligned with the user's objectives. And there's a healthy area of debate that needs to be instilled within the product development process between the voice of the customer and the business. And I don't know if it's necessarily the business always diminishing user experience. I think, or deprioritizing, it's prioritizing other things. It's prioritizing monetization, for instance. It may say, well, the most important thing today is that we look at the next sprint being an increase in average order value. We
Exactly,
need to do,
exactly.
we need to do that. Now, sometimes the voice of the customer can get lost in that, trying to achieve that. One of the ways that I try to make it the voice, really kind of speak to the business is by doing things like conversion rate optimization or A B testing, or checking the hypothesis of the business, breaking the barroom bet, so to speak, through A B or MVT testing. That can sort of also bring awareness to how much that content element in the journeys of the customer are really vital to have right for the customer, despite the overall goals of, say, the page, the app, the IoT device, the TV device, whatever. It's just like you got to give the customer what they want.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's sometimes a compromise, um, because it may mean less achievement in the overall goal in the short term, But what we're looking at here is the long term also, because even though you may have a specific KPI for that sprint or for that part of the product, the overall product development is like you talked about at the top of the call: customer satisfaction, customer lifetime value. You get to weigh sort of the balance of a lot of things, and I think the mid to long term goals of that can sometimes be overshadowed, like we talked about, and diminish the UX. But I think those that get really into maturity levels 1 or 2 get over that hump of enablement, really seeing the numbers and seeing the engagement or seeing the conversion numbers pop with an A/B test sometimes is all that it takes to sort of win over the business, to make sure that they recognize that this is a win-win we're looking for with
Yep,
different trends with the product and with the voice of the customer.
makes sense. Yep. So, Kishore, quick question. So, with the changing and maturing of the UX and the experience, right, on product engineering side, uh, an organization like EOV needs to be up to speed and updated on the tools that needs to be utilized, the technologies that need to be utilized to provide that experience that we were just talking about. So, can you walk us through the tools and technologies that EOV is using in achieving their product engineering and the assistance they provide to their clients?
Yeah, thank you, Raju. Generally, I can talk about this when we are talking about the UX. Ultimately, their UI is going to become out. But there are the I'm going to answer this question in the two halves. Like, so first is the UX. So in for the UX, you need to represent the data of the user, and that is called the information architecture. So all flow of your website we have to discuss on the whiteboarding. So for this we are going to use the Figma Jam, and then there are the uh, another for the wireframing. If you go for the wireframing, we are using the Figma again. And apart from this, there is a most important tool we are using for the UI development. So for that is the most important one, because before the product launch, we need to give the experience to the user, and for that one we have to do the prototype the actual product. Before the launch we have to show the our client, and for that purpose we are going to use a number of different tools. So there are the Adobe tools we are going to have, that is Adobe XD, Figma, then FigJam, then apart from that the Protopie, Azure. So these are the some of the important tool we are using in the UI for the product development lifecycle.
That's great. That's great. Um, so, Abhi, question back to you. Um, So we talked about these different experiences. We talked about the value of the user experience in product engineering. Um, EOV as a service provider, tell us what your clients can expect. Why should they be coming to EOV as a service provider when they start working on their products as such?
Wonderful question, Rajiv. The first and the foremost important thing is we do not work like any service product company, right? That's what is when I formed this organization, I was very clear how we want to work. The first and the foremost part is none of the team members would execute inside EOV any product development unless and until the client is clearly able to communicate the product vision. That's number one. Number two, it is extremely important, and how we work is, once a product particular vision is captured, it is we who always does a thorough requirement understanding validation. Once that is done, there would be a joint market validation or the product feasibility test that we do, right? And once that is done, we then move on to the technology. So for us, technology is just one small piece. What matters most for us inside EOV and for each and every team member of EOV is customer success. Now, how we arrive to the customer success, it all boils back to the again to the same point where I started. Understanding and aligning each and every stakeholders inside EOV, the client's ultimate product vision. That's number one. Number two is a strong center of excellence. As an organization, we understand if you really want to make certain things work, you need to have a right balance in between business and technology, right? Because eventually, what we try to solve, if you look in today's scenario, it is technology. So it's like an enablement tool, right? So for that, we personally feel and we have seen the benefit of it, right? So we have at this moment we have about 11 clients, right? We are running about 23 projects in total, right? And trust me, all 100% clients are successful, except one or two who we really don't see in the strategic level, and that's completely fine. Those has been a learning for us. So I shouldn't always say the good part. It's equally important to say, okay, what have been the not so good part as well. So if you see, all the success rate have been absolutely 100% for us, close to 100%. That is 99.98%, right? And this is, I think, this is the second reason why people should come to EOV. Third is I something I really don't like to talk is obviously the pricing, the price point, which would definitely be one of the point which any Western countries would look into. Fourth and last, we have the right subject matter expertise. We have the right set of people from the right industry. So if you see the combined leadership, the engineering leadership experience, they're 30 plus years. And all the leaders, they started their career right from doing a coding. They have done coding. They have done leading the coding team. They have done testing. They have done delivery management. They have done crisis management, right? If all these five, six ingredients are in place, I think that's what any service company, any company, any prospect would look out of a service company. Last and the most important thing is, are you are you would you be with that person when there is an urgent crisis right at the mid of the night? Yes, EOV would do that.
So, question,
EOV
Avi,
will do
very
that.
very well said. Very well said on why the people should come to EOV and the strengths that you guys have and your service provider attitude and that customer service attitude that you have. Question for you leading from that is who, what kind of a problem statement if a client sees, someone sees out there saying, oh, I'm stuck with this or I need to do this. What is that problem statement or what is that scenario when they should be thinking that EOV is the service provider I need to pick up the phone and call?
This is a very tricky question, Rajiv. I think every product has its own
I
life
love to put
cycle,
tricky
right?
questions, Abhi.
I think that's how I have been knowing you. No, okay, Rajiv. Probably you had been my client 20 years back. Let me ask you, what has brought you to me? How did you thought? Why did you thought when I know you and Vikram were talking a lot many things?
Yeah, so for me, you answered the why part of it. Why I'm working with
Okay,
EOV is the why part of it. Your service
okay,
provider attitude,
right,
right? Is to going
right,
out there, going, making sure it doesn't matter what time of the 24-hour clock is there, you are there for your client all the time, right?
absolutely,
With a smile
absolutely,
on your
absolutely,
face. My question is more aligned towards saying, if, and this is the way I see it, and I want to get a confirmation from you, is like I have
absolutely.
a site or I am trying to evolve from my existing presence to the new presence, going on to the new environment. But I do not know where the web technology is, where the US technology is leading to, right? People are talking about Web 3.0. Colin just talked about metaverse. They're big buzzwords out there. And someone is stuck with their old web design, the look design, which
Legacy,
had certain color
legacy.
scheme. And they're saying, I'm not getting the customer, I'm not getting the attention. But honestly, I have no idea what is out there.
That's
Where do I need to lead to? And that's
that's
when I
just one
think they
use
should be
case.
calling EOV.
That's one use case, Rajiv rightly pointed. That's one use case, and I
That's why I
confirm your
gave you the use case so you can tell the second and the third.
that's that's the first use case. The second use case would be when you have a concept in mind, but at times what happens, we have a very beautiful concept in mind, but we do not know how to percolate the concept into a product. right? Uh, that's a second stage. That's a second use case,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Makes sense.
The third use case would be many a times. Uh, okay, this is bit in continuation to the second use case. Many a time, you have an idea, it has a great potential in the market, right? And the product has a certain base already developed, and you need to modernize it. So that's the third case where we do together the development as a service provider. And once the product is basically ready, we take it jointly to some of our existing customer ecosystem to see how can we help that company in growing its revenue, either by revenue or by means of raising some fund from the VC community that we are connected with.
Mm-hmm.
These are the potentially three areas I see. But does it mean for every company who comes we would take them to VC? No, absolutely not. Those
Makes
are
sense.
like those would be like one out of 20 maybe. Somebody, Rajiv, and you say, Abhi, I know this guy have a better potential. Or Colin say, Abhi, I know this guy have a better potential. Why don't you look into it? Right? That's a very strong reference case that we need to retrieve, and then we need to put it internally.
Makes sense.
um,
So, Abhi,
does that
you
answer
very
your
well
question?
said it on what use cases may be out there for which the clients need to pick up the phone or reach out to you. And the why they would work with you is you already very eloquently presented that.
I'm
And
very clean about one thing, Rajiv. If you're really considering EOV, they would be you should not come to EOV for a price sensitive matter. You should really honor EOV for their technical knowledge. You bring any technical, I can bet on my executive leadership, my engineering leadership team, they can solve the best out of the best.
awesome.
You get on the design, I promise Kishore will leave no stone unturned. He has already delivered third. The fourth is on his plate. He's doing for the EOV himself, right? So I
Yeah.
can bet on this. So if you seriously, the way we look at it as from a strategic engagement, right? Not from a transactional engagement. We are not keen. We have plenty of transactional engagement already lined up. At this point of time, the organization is growing, and we want to grow as a true partner. Does it mean that we will stop supporting our clients during their financial distress? Absolutely not. We have a client in UK whom we are supporting from last 3 months, right? I spoke to the CEO. CEO says, Abhi, I'll make sure. Just today the payment has arrived. Just think, a 90 days delay in the payment for an organization which would complete its second foundation on 18th November 22. It's a big thing, right? And
That
if you
makes sense.
typically look at the so we
Good.
definitely want to grow. We want to work in a very strategic engagement level,
Okay.
wherein we will do joint investment in knowledge building, digital assets, retaining people. Those would be the most important thing, and being very transparent. Something that is not possible, just say not possible, not in our care, not in our competency. We need to build on. I think that will
Excellent.
raise a level of confidence as well.
Excellent. So we have all the good reasons why anyone should be reaching out to EOV. And Abhi, as a very passionate CEO of EOV, has given you all the reason and when to reach out to EOV. And my last question is going to be for everyone on the panel here. And that is a little tricky question, and everyone will have their own viewpoint to it. And but my job is to put tricky questions out there for you guys. And I'm going to put out the question, and I'm going to go in the rotation, starting with Colleen, going to Kishore, and then ending with Abhi. So my question is, when we talk about user experience, when we talk about product engineering, it's a situation where it can be never ending because you can keep evolving that design
Mhm.
forever, right? Every time you design it, you look at it, the size of the widgets, the colors palettes as out there, the navigation buttons, the messaging, everything can be ongoing process. And sometimes you may be
Mhm.
caught in that gut of doing user experience design, the UIs forever and ever and ever. How do you manage client expectations when it comes to UI and user experience designs? And at what point you help the client understand we are good enough to move forward? And I'm going to start that question with Colleen.
Yeah, I think alignment is key, from start to finish. And then we put certain things into our, we have a couple of different ways to approach this. One is we do the new type product development all up front. All up front meaning we have an engagement. We're doing all of the product requirements. We're doing all the wireframing. It's an engagement in its own. That's a key thing before we actually even put the tactical tech into there, and even build out anything actual in the cloud. So having those envisioned requirements and having the wireframes, and then what at what point is done, when is done. Yes,
Exactly.
you know of course there's always the ongoing uh, sort of I guess organicness of a product, as you mentioned. um but I think that any product that's coming out the gate, you're trying to finalize a lot of things at once, and it's not possible to just completely hit the brand and the product needs out the get-go, I think, without actual audience testing, and then actual audience usage. So during the audience testing, UX testing phases, I think as those get incorporated, and there's an actual cadence to how many different when done is done, and if you're doing more than three um, rounds of changes, I think that you start to get into diminishing returns of the spend of the budget. So it's really kind of boundaries we align on at the get go. Hey, we're not going to do more than three rounds. Hey, that second round's going to user testing. And if we have a principled process for this UX from an expert team, quite like my partners here, EOV, and Abby's team, what I've found is, um, people will work with good constraints, not constraints for constraints' sake, but good constraints. And then, of course, once live, that becomes a whole new opportunity to A B test, to do hypothesis testing on, did I choose the right color to reflect that button within the scheme of the product. And so there's, I think, it's, yes, it's never done. It's done for release, and then it's how are we going to manage the change management from there. And surely there's always changes, and it's looking at the costs of that particular feature change. It's being disciplined in a process, looking at complexity and priorities, determinant upon the business, with the inclusion of the voice of the customer. So that's kind of in a nutshell how I manage, um, that particular issue, which can end up in scope creep, and could end up uh, exceeding budgets. And yes, it happens and sometimes it needs to, because somewhere along the line did take a wrong turn, and you get to user testing, and you realize this isn't going to just be a one and done piece of it. So, but you can isolate those as issues, monitor them well in the project management process, in your agile development, and I think from there, make good decisions in an aligned environment.
So process discipline is critical in that cycle as such. So I'll go with Kishore. Kishore, what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, thank you, Raju. So actually, I'm just going to give some of the realistic example what we have done in the UOV for such tricky questions. So what happened? We are designing for the one of the client, like one of the travel industry, and you know that in the travel industries we are going to having the very complex structure. Like there are the B2C, B2B products is coming out, and we want to sell, because ultimate goal of the any user experience is just selling, and that's the most important one, because this is where the customer success is going to be live. And so what I have done is I have given the my 90% of the time to think about and research of that product. Right. Research is such a powerful tool we are going to have. So just going to be use the piece of paper and pen, or some of the user research. That is some of in some cases it is going to be expansive, but not expansive as much of the just like product development cost. So for the initial phase, we have to have the think on based on the research. So when we are having the some of the competitive analysis, user research, that's filtered the 95 percentage of the criteria. So like what should be the navigation here, what should be the interaction here, what should be the that what kind of form I have to use here. So this research is going to be reduced the 95%, rest is the 5%, and rest is 5% is we are going to be solving by the calling method. So we have to have go for the then again prototyping, then we have to develop that products, and then we are going for the testing, A to B testing, and some of the things. So after doing that testing, obviously we have to get the user feedbacks, and from that user feedback understand the voice of the user, and then we have to reiterate the products. So during that process, we are giving the 3 to 4 in our internal team. We are creating the 3 to 4 sample to the that products, and we are just going to be internally test whether this sample is going to be work before the testing. So this is how we can reduce the actual product life cycle and implement on the in that products. Yeah.
Makes sense. Great. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Kishore. Abhi, what are your thoughts?
Um, I'll I agree to what Colleen and Kishore pointed out, but as Colleen mentioned, it's an evolving process, right? We typically need to follow what do you say? You have to follow a particular procedure, right? A discipline, right? And I personally feel you can always be at that point where both the parties say, hey, you know what, we are comfortable, we know we both have understood each other. It is during the third iteration of your design thinking process, usually. Because what happens is in the level one, because by the time you're in level three, you are deep in the micro to the problem statement, or to the solution that is meant to be delivered. Yes, A/B testing, hypothesis testing, those are important, but I think to convince, if both have understood, it is just much ahead of time. uh, Technically it has to be on the fourth round of iterations, when you do the designing, when you sit, because when you can't do the design just by thinking about the design. You need to do the design thinking about the problem that you're trying to solve through that particular design, through that particular solution. And what we have seen usually during the wireframing iteration, those happens usually at the stage 3 or stage 4, which means in about 4 to 6 weeks, we have typically seen a client is convinced this is a right partner. Let me also tell you, Rajiv, one of the most important aspects that I have seen in my 16 years of career, what is the most important part for any client to have a confidence on the service provider is the transparency. Because what happens is when you're in a project, there would be several times you would encounter multiple unreasonable substances for which your delivery might get impacted. Majority of the time this comes as a surprise, which impacts the business and the revenue and the cost. If as a service provider, right from day zero, if we are able to give that complete burnout chart, the complete transparency, if there is a delay, why is the delay? If as a company If you're able to constantly keep on pushing the client, updating, that's what EOV does, right? If there is some delay, we keep on letting the client know, hey, you know what, these are the 3 4 dependencies for which we are now getting into a delay mode. Please look into it. We have marked it with orange and red, right? If it's an orange, it is still manageable, but if it's red, you need to look into it. We create an executive stakeholder management review wherein we say, I personally get into the call with the CEO saying, you know what, you guys are now burning money, because eventually it will come firing to the service provider you did not say. It is extremely important. That's where the first level of confidence kicks in,
So,
right?
go ahead, Abhi.
Yeah, yeah, that's what my personal feel. If you really want to come to a level of confidence, it has to be in the day zero, wherein you need to be 100% transparent what is happening. It could be either at the technology, it could be either at the understanding, it could be either at the design thinking. You need to let your client know where you are facing the hurdle.
Right. So
See, any client will always come to a service provider.
I think
Any
I
client
need
will
to.
always come to a service provider.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Abhi. And I love your passion about helping the clients with those problems and making sure the clients are on track in delivering the solution that they are working on. But the reason I asked that specific question, and all of you guys presented absolutely the right answer to the right track to that, is at the end of the day, there's a problem statement that we are trying to solve, and the problem statement, the product design is helping solve that product problem statement. And the
100%.
analysis, the KPIs, everything that we talked about are leading into that product design, and which is back to leading to
100%.
our today's topic. And I wanted to tie all of these together, which was delivering the excellent product experience before launch, right? So when you're putting that
Correct.
problem statement, who came to you with that problem statement, when you put that product design together and you walk through those prototypes, as Kishore was talking about, and talking through those user experiences, and looking at the user testing, as Colleen was talking about, and you're able to answer that question through your product design, that I'm able to address this problem statement through these following steps. And this is what my prototype and my user experience level twos are telling me. You're able to provide that product experience to the person, to your client, before the launch happens. And when the launch happens, there's no surprises, because everything has gone through those cycles as you went through that product experience, solving that problem statement. So, great discussion, because I think you guys really addressed everything that we needed to tie up to today's topic on the product experience. And the user experience has really evolved over the times, and it will continue to evolve. And organizations like EOV, who are out there making sure they're abreast with the new technologies, abreast with the new knowledge, to help their clients get that vision on how to get that problem statement resolved on the product experience perspective. So, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys coming on today's webinar to talk about this very important topic. Thank you, Abhi, from Pune. I know it's quite late at night there, and we kept you awake. So, thank you so much for joining us from Pune. Colleen, thank you so much for your very
Pleasure.
insightful discussion, and I really enjoyed your discussion on the IP and collaborative working and the metaverse. Extremely knowledgeable. And thank you, Kishore, on your technology and product experience and everything
Thank
that
you.
your guys are using at EOV. So, friends, until next time in a month or so, when we bring you the next topic from EOV on our LinkedIn live show from the EOV's platform. Until then, please take care, have a wonderful time, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye to everyone.
Bye bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye.